Palworld 1.0 is officially out, and with it, we now finally are going to be having access to the world tree and also a couple of crazy new pals and other things in the game. Like, for example, this creature called the Panthalus, which is an absolutely enormous floating whale. And if you want to know how you can unlock that whale and also get access to the world tree, you're going to want to watch this video because it's quite a process and it is going to require you basically be quite high level. This is very endgame stuff. You're going to essentially need to be, I would recommend, at least level 70 in order to do this, and also have some pretty strong pals with you in order to take on some of these bosses, which you're going to need in order to gain access to the world tree. Now, without further ado, let's discuss all the steps that you're going to have to do in order to get there. The first step you're going to need to do is you're going to want to go over to the floating island, and the floating island you're going to be able to find at the southernmost point of the map. Now, this is going to be kind of floating over water. You're going to want to fly out here with a pal. You can do this with something technically as low level as a beacon. So I was actually able to get up this floating island with the beacon. The reason why it's a bit difficult to get up this floating island, because as you can see, the floating island is actually quite high in the air, and most of your pals are going to have a bit of a difficult time with regards to getting all the way up there due to stamina limitations. However, if you follow this video, what you will want to do is you're going to want to go all the way to the center of this floating island, and you'll kind of see the sharp spire sticking down very low to the ocean, and this is going to be how we're going to get up. Essentially, what you're going to want to do is fly up and hug the wall, stay as close to the wall as you can, and you will find that there will be this little crack on the side of the wall here, which you will be able to rest, and then you're going to be able to regenerate your stamina, allowing you to kind of then hop all the way up to the top. Now, if you want to be able to get to the floating islands the intended way, it can be a little bit harder. You are basically going to have to go to the southernmost part of the map. It's essentially where you find the tower boss, the Faybreak Tower entrance. You're going to want to go all the way over there, and you're going to want to fight Bjorn. He's going to be the boss that you need to defeat. When you do end up defeating Bjorn, you are then going to be taken to the top of the tower, and there's going to be a teleporter you can hop into, which will take you to the floating islands. So now, once you're at the top of the island, there's a couple more things you're going to need to do. The first thing that you're going to notice is there is going to be a tornado, and this tornado is going to be right by the tallest point of the floating island, which is basically stopping you from getting access to the tower boss, which is what you're going to want to do in order to progress the quest line, which is going to then allow you to go to the world tree. Now, in order to kind of deactivate this tornado, there are going to be a bunch of these terminals all around the floating islands, which you're going to have to hack. And then when you do end up hacking all of them, it will kind of lower the tornado. Now, these are going to be quite easily identifiable due to the fact that you will see this kind of like blue beam of light coming out of where all the terminals are. There's several of them all around this floating island region. They're typically going to be inside these kind of like towers that'll be filled with enemies, so you're gonna have to fight your way through that. And then when you get to the top level, you're gonna find these computer terminals that you're gonna have to hack. And when you do end up hacking all of them, you will then basically lower down the tornado, and you'll be able to go fight the boss here. Now, the boss is going to be quite challenging, so again, you're gonna want to bring some high level pals. This one's actually very challenging due to the fact that you only have a 5 limit timer. Usually you get 10 minutes with these, so you have quite substantially less time in order to fight this. That's probably the most difficult thing about it. But when you do end up defeating this boss, you will then unlock the next part of the quest. Now, essentially at this point, just outside the tower, there is going to be an NPC who is basically the rider of the boss you just ended up facing. And when you do end up talking to her, she will basically point you in the direction of the next quest, which you're going to need to do in order to get access to the world tree. So now at this point, you're going to want to go over to the Anubis Dunes. This is essentially where you find Anubis, and you're going to want to head on a little bit north into the kind of like river or water just to the north of Anubis. And you're going to then find this little island. You're going to see this kind of giant skeleton on the island. I believe that's actually a skeleton of this whale, but you will be able to see there's going to be this kind of portal here where you're going to be able to fight a boss, but you're not going to be able to fight the boss yet. The way you're going to be able to fight this boss is essentially you need to talk to this NPC, the Ancient Civilian Researcher, and the Ancient Civilian Researcher will basically give you a quest, and the quest line is going to be that you have to go collect a bunch of parts for him. Now, these parts are going to be marked on your map, so you can pretty easily see them by the yellow exclamation marks. I'm not going to go ahead and show you exactly where they are because you just got to, open your map and you will see quite easily where to find them. But essentially, when you do end up collecting all the parts, you are then going to be able to go to a workbench, and you are then going to be able to craft this horn, which when you bring it back to this guy, he will then allow you to go through to fight the boss. Now, this is where things get quite tricky. This boss is, and I mean it, very, very tough. This is easily the hardest boss I've been able to face so far in the game up until this point. and it is going to be quite a challenging one. Now, this boss, essentially what you're going to want to do is you are going to need to bring a bunch of very high level pulls. You're also going to probably want to bring plenty of heals, and basically just bring the best stuff that you possibly have. Bring everything that you have, bring all the best weapons, bring plenty of heals, and make sure you bring some pretty powerful pulls, because this boss is no joke. Now, the way this boss works is essentially you are going to have very limited movements, since there's basically just one giant ocean and there's going to be a tiny little island that you're going to be able to stand on. So you're not going to have a whole lot of ways to move around, and this boss is going to pretty much have 2 phases. Now, for the most part, the first phase is not too bad. I mean, it does a lot of damage. It's going to send these massive waves to you every now and then. It's going to shoot these kind of like giant bubbles towards you, and it's not going to be doing all that much. It's fairly easy on the first phase, but once you do end up getting this boss to the halfway mark, that's when things get pretty crazy. What this boss is essentially going to do then, it's going to start flying straight up into the air, very far out of reach, and it's going to make massive tsunamis, and I mean massive, like actually Armageddon level tsunamis, and they are going to hit you, and they're going to do an enormous amount of damage and also drag you even further out to sea, making it quite difficult to get back to the island. So make sure you bring with you a flyer or two, because you are definitely going to need to fly back and forth every now and then, especially if this boss ends up hitting you. You might get dragged quite far out to sea, and you might need to try fly back to that island as quickly as possible. Now, this boss is going to be a water type, so I would definitely recommend that you bring a bunch of maybe powerful electric types here to get the type advantage, but this is going to be a pretty challenging boss, especially when we get to the second phase. It's very annoying to try fight it when it goes so high in the air, and that massive tsunami tidal wave is a pretty devastating attack. I'm not gonna lie, it's very epic to look at until you get hit by it, and then you realize just how screwed you are. So be very, very careful. This is definitely a boss fight that you are going to probably want to be at least level 70 before facing. Now, when it comes to actually capturing this Panthalus, which is, by the way, very, very enormous, you are essentially going to need to damage this boss all the way down to 1 HP. Now, don't worry. As far as I'm aware, this boss doesn't actually die. It will, when you do end up reducing its health all the way down to practically 0, it will go into kind of like last stand critical state, where you will, I think, have a 100% chance of capturing with the Pulse Sphere. So don't worry too much about capturing it. You'll know when you are ready to capture it. Just keep damaging it all the way until it is ready to be captured, and then you will be able to then capture with 100%. And this is going to then give you a pretty epic pal, which you're actually able to ride, and it's kind of insane how big this thing is. You don't even need a saddle. It is probably the biggest pal I've ever seen by far, and very, very epic. You can even dismount it in mid-air and kind of stand on its back, which is kind of crazy. So very, very cool. It's got massive AoE attacks. It's very, very powerful and just kind of insane to look at. So definitely one of the best rewards I've seen in this game, getting access to this Panthalus. And the reason why you need this Panthalus is because when you do end up going to the World Tree is essentially going to have a barrier which you're not going to be able to cross without the Panthalus. So at this point, just fly over to the World Tree, make sure you have the Panthalus with you, go over to this platform by the World Tree, and then you're going to then be able to ride the Panthalus all the way to the World Tree, which is going to be this game's very, very end game content. So if you do end up coming here, be prepared, because everything in here is going to be extremely high level and very, very deadly. So that is how you access the World Tree. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section below how you're enjoying Palworld 1.0 release, and let me know if there's any other cool pals you found along your journeys. I'll see you guys again next time. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.